80% of people who start a business fail within the first 5 years. And what this shows is that business ownership is actually the highest failure rate job in the world. And my question to you, Vic, is why is that the case?
I think the number one reason is that business ownership is a profession. Please treat it with the respect it deserves, and it will treat you back with respect.
Welcome to another episode of the Bill Hauser podcast. Today I have a special guest, the one and only Vic Ciuffetelli, who is the Executive Vice President of Sales and Coaching here at SMB Team and former CEO of Action Coach. And Vic has directly and indirectly coached thousands and thousands of business owners to success. And what we're going to be talking about today is why most businesses fail. So the reason this is an important topic and the reason I wanted to bring Vic on today is Vic brought up a really good point when we were having a conversation earlier today. And what I think Vic was trying to say about business success or failure is if you look at any profession, right? If you look at any job that anyone could ever have in business, like for example, a seamstress or a barber or a lawyer that works for someone else or any employee-based job, you're not going to see 80% of employees fail at their job within the first couple of years of starting that job, right? But in business, 80% of people who start a business fail within the first 5 years. And what this shows is that business ownership is actually the highest failure rate job in the world. It is by far the highest failure rate job. And my question to you, Vic, is why is that the case?
Bill, I think the number one reason is that most business owners don't recognize or treat business ownership as a profession. It's something that, and I don't know how we got to this point, but it seems to be it's an activity that we have to learn by doing. All the jobs that you mentioned previously, and you look at any business, most of the jobs that fill any business, you need to get a college degree of some description, all right, or a certificate of some description to say I have had higher learning to be able to do this role. But in business, there are two roles that you can't go to college for, and I would argue that they are the most important two jobs in any business. Job number one is that of business owner. We don't treat it as a profession. We don't see it as a profession. Job number two is sales. You can't go to college and get a sales degree. You can't get a doctorate of sales. Yet the two most important roles in any industry, in any business, we have to learn by trial and error. And if you learned any profession through trial and error, you're going to have a high failure rate. I mean, I think I'm pretty good with my hands, but I'm sure I've never gone to business school. I don't have a trade. Putting up a house doesn't look that difficult. You know, put a slab, put up a couple of bits of timber, nail them. I don't know that I'd be wanting to live in a house that I put up, but as I'm learning to put it up as I go along. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Yet we treat business ownership, when anybody goes into business, one of the most important ventures of your life, and yet we don't spend enough time learning about it before we actually do it.
Why do you think that is?
I wish I knew what the answer was
Yeah.
but it's just we were brought up that way. Maybe as human beings, business ownership started in the early days, where people were exchanging goods. Maybe it grew up from that way that we just, hey, it's just something we need to learn by
Yeah.
ourselves. I don't know how it got to that point, but we're at that point. You talk to, I mean, my father was in business, my grandfather was in business, and they were proud of the fact that, oh, I learned this as I was going along. They were
Mm.
proud of that. But it was
Yep.
just a dumb way to learn because a lot of people failed in that process as well. And even today, it's even dumber.
Mm.
The rate of change today compared to what my grandfather went to, what my father went through, the rate of change has gone through the roof.
Mm.
And yet we're supposed to know all of that intrinsically.
Mm.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So here's a thought. As you were talking about why would somebody possibly, how could you possibly start a business and learn on the job how to run that business, which is what 99% of people do? How could someone possibly do that? An example you shared with me is a surgeon, right? How many people would love to hire a surgeon to operate on their heart, right? To choose a doctor to operate on their heart, and they told you, oh, I'm learning on the job. I haven't had any successful heart surgeries yet, but I'm getting close. Only a couple more deaths and one or two more, and then I'll have my first survivor, and you might be that person.
And they'll also tell you, but I'm passionate about this. This is what I was meant to do. So they'll be all excited by it. But I don't know that we'd want to be on the other end of that operation.
Yeah, or a pilot, right? Oh yeah, I haven't had any successful flights yet. I really love this though, and I'm really passionate about it. And I think this flight's going to be the one where I don't crash. So everyone, please have a very relaxing flight. Thank you. But piggybacking off of that, I think embedded in our DNA, in our history as human beings, I believe it's important to acknowledge that before industrial revolution occurred in the world, you pretty much just did an extension of what your parents did, right? So if you really look through hundreds, even thousands of years of history prior to the Industrial Revolution, my dad was a locksmith, I become a locksmith. My mentor is my dad, right? So I didn't need a business coach, right? I didn't need someone to mentor or advise me other than my own family member, my dad. So it's basically I got free coaching, right? For my entire life because my dad was a locksmith, I became a locksmith, so he was the perfect coach for it, right? And as the world evolved and division of labor, which we were talking about a few days ago in a part of our business, division of labor became essential in the Industrial Revolution, specialization of labor, and also simultaneously freedom of choice at the same time increased, where people could choose their profession, right? People could choose tracks of learning in school. People could choose what they wanted to study and or become a master in. And it became socially accepted over time. I was watching a documentary on, I don't think it was Julius Caesar. I think it was Alexander the Great, something like that. Josephine. Who was the person who had Josephine? What wasn't that? Was that Alexander the Great?
Oh,
Yeah, who's whoever the one that had Josephine?
Napoleon was
Napoleon. Yeah, that's it. Napoleon. Jeez. So I was watching a documentary on Napoleon, and Napoleon was unable to have a baby with Josephine, right? So he had to divorce her and have a baby with someone else, or so that's how the story goes. And hierarchy was so important that Napoleon needed an heir to the throne, that he divorced his wife because he was unable to have a baby with her, and he had to go marry someone else to have a baby with someone else, because the social hierarchy of you doing what your dad did was the social norm, right? To break the family bond was a little bit insane, right? So we look to today in business, and everyone is choosing their own path in business. It is night and day different. It is almost shocking if a kid does exactly what their parent does. It's like, what? Wow, that's rare, right? Whereas that was the norm in the past. So maybe part of the reason that people go into business ownership is somewhere deep in our belief system, we have learned over eons and eons that we don't have to go out and seek mentors or seek a business coach or seek someone to help us, succeed in our line of business, because for thousands and thousands of years we just modeled our parents, right? And it's only been a couple hundred years since the Industrial Revolution. So maybe the reason people don't put more emphasis on learning the skill of business ownership and finding mentor, going out of their way to find a mentor and find a business coach or someone to teach them the skills of business ownership outside of their family, is because it's uncomfortable to do that. It's, I have to go out into a market where I don't know the quality of, like you were saying, there is no real leader in the market in business mentorship or coaching or advisory. So because there is no clear leader in the market, it's all just like, I guess I'll just learn it on my own. There is no clear playbook, right? Like you were saying, like you want our iteration of our coaching business to become like that playbook. And you and I both know we have that playbook. The problem is not enough people know about the playbook, right? And if you don't know about the playbook, that there is a hard and fast, like definitive playbook on how to become an excellent business owner. If you don't have or know that playbook exists, it's hard to even know what problems you're trying to solve, which then comes down to the unfortunate truth that you and I were talking about earlier today too, is then it's like, okay, well, I have to become problem aware in order to even know that I need help. And unfortunately, the way that most people become problem aware in business is failure. Ran out of money, had to shut down the business, catastrophic things that affect your family and affect your... So what if you didn't have to go through all that and instead you could avoid all those pitfalls? And unfortunately, the data suggests the complete opposite of that, or otherwise 80% of businesses wouldn't be failing in the first 5 years.
Correct. And look, the solution for governments, the solution is simple. We could turn this around very, very quickly. And what is the solution? The solution is that before anyone can start a business, they have to get a certificate. So at least they understand the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for how simple that happens is, and I've had the opportunity over my career to work in 86 countries and meet with a lot of government ministers. And even though the solution is simple, it somehow never gets implemented. Because we could stop a lot of heartache. See, that's the problem. We look at the numbers, we look at the statistics, but let's understand what is behind all of that. There's heartbreak. Someone has just lost their money. They've lost their dream when a business fails. A family has lost income. It could take them decades to recover. This is not a pretty number. We just put it out there. Yeah. But listen, there's a lot of heartache in that number. So yes, I think if we really got the message out there to say, listen, business ownership is a profession. Please treat it with the respect it deserves, and it will treat you back with respect. It will give you the life that you want. It will give you the life that you dreamt of. That's why you got into business, because you're the type of person who wanted more.
Mm-hmm.
No one
Imagine,
ever failed in business because they were lazy. They wanted it. They worked for it. But without the education,
imagine a pilot without a pilot's license. Imagine a doctor without, any of the
the diplomas that's required, all of
yeah.
those things.
So how do we? The question comes down to how do we either invent a mechanism of business certification, like you said, and make it mandatory, or if that's not possible, which would require you or me getting into politics to make that happen, which I don't think either of us would like that. Okay, so then that leaves us with, we've got to educate the market.
We have to educate the market. We have to make what should be simple, simple. It's not difficult when you know how. All right. It's like anything in life. When you know how, it's really not that difficult.
Yeah.
There's no mystery of running a successful business once you've educated yourself.
There's 4 pillars.
Four
right?
pillars.
Scalable lead generation system. Scalable sales system to turn leads into customers. Self-managing team, right? To have a team of people that can handle all those customers without the owner's involvement. And then last but not least is a profit plan. I mean, there are people on Earth who have invented reusable rockets, okay? There are people who have invented stem cell therapy techniques that can literally regenerate any tissue in the human body, okay? You mean to tell me with the sharpness, the advancement of the human brain and the things that we have invented, the light bulb, airplanes, the ability to communicate through the ether via wireless telephone technology, right? Wi-Fi, right? Literal inanimate objects. You can't touch Wi-Fi, right? We've invented all these beautiful things in our life, right? So to think you can't figure out how to generate leads, to think you can't figure out how to have a sales process, to think you can't figure out how to hire and retain great people, to think that you can't create a profit plan it's a frustrating reality that most people actually don't know how to do those 4 simple things, right?
Simple for you and I, Bill, because we have educated ourselves on that. It's not simple when you don't know how.
What I'm trying to say is it should be empowering to know that the human mind has solved much more complicated things than these 4 principles that we're discussing, right? It's not like, oh man, I have to learn, how to become a rocket engineer. No, it's like, I need to learn how to spend a little bit of money on ads and turn that into a return on investment by following up with leads. Like, to me, that's empowering. And the challenging thing is that I don't think most people view it, to your point, as empowering. You've worked one-on-one with a lot of our clients and thousands of other clients in probably hundreds of industries to this point. Why do you think there's so much insecurity around these 4 skills of business ownership: lead generation, sales, team, and profits? Why is there so much insecurity, mental abandonment, when it's really just these 4 simple pillars? And I actually do think that deep down, most people know. They may not have put words on it, but they know, I got to generate leads. I got to turn them into customers. I mean, that's not like I mean, most people, if you were to interview them on a lie detector test and grill them through like forensic interviewing and crazy stuff, right? I'm sure most business owners would say, yeah, I know I got to get leads. I know I got to turn them into customers, right? So it's like, I feel like most people actually do know this, but they bury their head under the sand and they don't actually learn anything about it.
Yeah, there's a difference between learning something and doing something. What I have to do compared to how do I do it?
What do you mean?
Well, what do I have to do? I have to generate sales, leads. What do I have to do? I have to convert leads. That's the what. Yes, I know what. How?
Yeah.
How do I generate the leads? How do I convert them?
Yeah, so it's the same thing with workouts, right? At the beginning of the year, everyone knows, they know I have to eat less and I have to move more. What percent of them actually do that?
Yeah, you have to study it. You have to, if you want to be serious about it, you have to study it. It's like anything.
So I think as you start studying, as you put on your business owner hat and you put on your sales hat, which are the two hats of running a business, those are the two actual roles. You know, and it's really funny. We've started, two different businesses as extensions of SMB Team, Attorney Assistant and Attorney Fuel. And both of these, our one company, Attorney Assistant, has gone from 0 to like 11 million in revenue in 2 years. And I don't even run that company. Ethan does. And as great as he is at product, Ethan, he's also very passionate about what he does, and he does understand sales. You know, whether he likes to admit it or not, he is good at sales, right? Our second business that we just added on, Attorney Fuel, which is a intake and sales CRM software. That's already, I just checked in with him today, and you were on the end of the call I had with him. It's already at like 50 grand a month, and it's been like I don't know, a month since we launched it or so, or like 2 months maybe, and it's already a $600,000 business, right? Now, you look at the percentage of businesses that ever get to 600,000, let alone 11 million a year. Success leaves clues. Why are two businesses in a row that we attached onto our company, why are they growing as fast as they are, right? Why did our company grow as fast as it did and continues to? Success leaves clues, right? And how much time, if you were to look at, and I don't want to call myself some messiah of, perfection in either of these two areas, but if you were to define, just from your experience in working with me, where are the two areas I spend time, what would you say? What percent of my time do I spend in business owner and sales? Or let's call it revenue generation, because that also entails marketing, right? Now, if you compare where I spend my time, where Ethan spent his time, where Phil spent his time versus the average business owner, you're going to see maybe I spend 80% of my time in revenue generation and business owner category. And then 20% is maybe stuff that I eventually need to delegate and get away from. You look at Ethan, you look at Phil, maybe they're in the same area, right? 80% or maybe 70 or 85%. I don't know. You look at the average business owner, like, any technical expert business owner, someone who has to know their stuff in order to run the business, like a lawyer, for example, or a contractor or whatever vertical, dentist, they spend 80% of their time doing the work. Maybe 20, maybe actually probably 95% of their time doing the stuff. And if I have any time, maybe 5% on business ownership, 5% on sales, right? So as I look at this, it's like maybe this is just coming down to, like you said, it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to do it, right? And I think that the reflection of taking the principle of the two roles you have in business is that of business owner and sales. Look at your calendar, open up your calendar, and report back to someone you love over the last 90 days of the available 40 hours of a work week. On average, I spent 30 of those 40 hours not being a business owner and not generating revenue. Or maybe you're one of the few who is spending 35 of those 40 hours a week, or however many hours you work per week, on business owner and sales. But that disparity, newsflash, and I think this is what you're saying, if that allocation doesn't change, then you're not going to change. Your business isn't going to change. Your family's livelihood isn't going to change. And in order to change, you got to give up something. This is one of the hardest things about change, right? Is on the other side of growth, you got to give up something that was comfortable to you in the past, right? In order to adopt change. So that's the hardest thing, is how do I take these things that have formed comfort ruts, which, a saying I've heard from Brendan Burchard is sometimes our deepest skills form our deepest ruts. The things we get really good at, they end up trapping us over time, right? So how do you escape that rut? Well, you've got to go build a new rut. And sometimes our ruts are literally walking in circles. It actually becomes a circle rut. Just from walking in circles, doing the same exact thing. This is why people say, I have 15 years experience. No, I actually have 1 year of experience repeated 15 times, right? Very different.
Yeah, but look at your own journey, Bill. I mean, you went into business. Your first business wasn't successful, but you did do something that a lot of business owners didn't do at that point, and that is you invested a lot of money in learning about business as you were building a business. Like, you didn't stop working, and that takes time, money, and effort. So you do need to sacrifice, but for the greater good. So at every look, we're always sacrificing. At every moment of the day, we're sacrificing. I'm here today, but I could be doing something else. That's what I'm sacrificing. All right. When we set a goal, if a business owner has a goal that they want to achieve strong enough, and again, if I just go back one step, a business should be able to provide you the life that you want to live. Right? Your ideal life, the business should be able to provide that, because a business should be a money-making machine. All right. And most dreams take money. All right. Spending more time with the children is going to take more money. I mean, everything comes down to more money. So with that, if your dream is strong enough, you'll make the sacrifices, the time sacrifices, to carve out some time to learn. Learn, then you'll be able to speed up. But you have to acknowledge, as a business owner, do I really want to make a change? Because it's possible. It's absolutely possible. But do I want it?
Yeah, and I think the want it factor is actually hard for people to form if they don't have mentors that are beyond them, or they don't have a methodology that opens them up to what's possible. For example, let's say everyone in your family didn't go to school, which this is basically my family. Everyone in your family grew up in low-income housing and struggled for all their years in growing up, and you pop out and you build a business that does $500,000 a year, right? Well, if that's your only reference experience, then hell, I made it. I'm rich, right? Because if I compare myself, That's why comparison is the thief of joy in so many ways, but it's also the propeller of our dreams in so many ways as well, right? It's almost that comparison, negative comparison, comparing yourself to people who are worse off than you is actually a thief of joy. Like, that's a way no one's probably ever described it before, right? Is usually they're saying, oh, comparing myself to people who are beyond me is the thief of joy. No, also comparing yourself to people below you is the thief of joy, right? Because then I get complacent at a mediocre level because I'm better than them, right? And I remember when I was going in my first year in business and second year in business, my mom has always been my biggest fan, and I wouldn't be 1/10 of who I am today without my mom. And I just remember her complimenting me every day because she was coming from a place of fear, a place of, oh shit, he quit his sales job at yellowpages.com. I don't really know if this is going to work out. So when it started working after the second, third year, she was like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. I can't believe, right? But I had to kind of shut my ears to that a little bit because I was comparing myself to people who were doing 100 million, 1 billion, right? So in my mind, I'm like, okay, thank you, Mom. I really appreciate it. This isn't to my standard, though. This isn't like to where I am happy. I'm not happy, right? Where I was at that time, I wasn't happy. Because still, even when you're running a business that does 1 million a year, the owner has to be involved in 90% of the business, even at 1 million a year, which most people look at as an accomplishment. And that was the least happy period of my business ownership career, was right around that 1 million mark, because I was still involved in everything. I had no freedom, right? And I remember, the point where I started kind of realizing I have to formalize who I compare myself to. I have to really put a stake in the ground and say, I'm only going to listen to people who are beyond where I am. So that level of mentorship, like when you're saying it's important to want it, my question about that is, what do I want? And how do I determine what I want? Do I just do it in a meditative pose? Or do I actually have to meet some people who have a tremendous amount of freedom, who have a tremendous amount of money? So for me, that's what unlocked me in being like, come hell or high water, I want that, right? And had I never had that reference experience, I don't know that I ever would have even known these desires I had deep down. Yeah, they were in there. They were somewhere low in my lower intestine, right? Somewhere down there. I didn't have words for them. I didn't know they were possible, right? So, but until I met a mentor and then another mentor and then another mentor, and oh my God, that person's making 20 million a year. Oh my God, that person just took 3 months off of their business and nothing happened. Oh my God, this person, blah, 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 blah. Then I'm like, oh shit, I need to really push aside all the distractions and make this real for me. And I wish that we could find a way to make burning desire, the first chapter of Think and Grow Rich. How can we make burning desire a real thing for people? Because without burning desire, Vic, to your point, if I don't really want it, how much am I going to do for something I don't really want?
But I would hazard a guess, Bill, that every single business has started with burning desire. It just gets distinguished along the way. All right. And we get into this myth belief. I have to work harder. I have to pay myself less because I'm the business owner. Oh, my value is when I sell the business. No, these are all myths. Your value is in what you're producing today.
Mm.
And comparison is not the killer. I would encourage everybody to compare to yourself to somebody better. It's jealousy that's the killer.
Mm.
If you're jealous of that, I mean, whatever you deny in somebody else, you deny in yourself.
Mm.
So if you're going out there comparing and embracing if somebody's success, congratulating them for their success, you open yourself up to learn that. Jealousy is what closes it down.
Damn. Well, this is our intervention episode about why business ownership has the highest failure rate of any trade, of any professional designation, and how you can put together a personal development action plan for yourself to make sure you're not in that 80%. And let's not forget, the 80% number doesn't include the percent of people who die before they die. What I mean by that is people who don't live a fully fulfilled life while running their own business, which I would say is probably 80% of the businesses who survive past 5 years are surviving in spite of the owner and with an unhappy owner, right? So
or just barely surviving. So they're not ready to close the doors. They're just barely surviving, and they're not enjoying the journey. That's insane.
yeah. So yeah, this episode is a reminder to those listening that there is a different path, and don't make yourself a part of the statistics. And anytime, when people say, what's the average blah blah company do, don't listen to them, because you don't want to be a part of the average, because if you are a part of the average, you're going to be in that 80%. So use this episode as your kick in the butt to get the hell out of the average trap. All right, well, I'll see everyone in the next episode. If you like this, please tell a friend about the podcast, and we're trying to spread the gospel about this stuff. I'll see you in the next episode. If you found value in this podcast, here's one way I can help your firm right now. First, you can get our new book, Law Firm Growth Accelerator. It's everything we've learned over 10 plus years helping lawyers build thriving, profitable firms. The strategies that you'll get in this book work for any practice area and any revenue level. You can get the audiobook and ebook 100% free, or just cover the shipping and we'll send you the physical copy to you in addition to the audio and ebook. Go to smbteam.com/book to get your copy.